Ever find yourself listening to the radio and you just think, wow, how do they do that?
Mm,
Well, today we're diving deep into the secret world of radio production
that's right.
with a big assist from RoleCatcher's Career Resources.
We're going way beyond the job description you see online
Yeah.
and uncovering what really makes this career tick.
You've provided a ton of great info on this, and even I was surprised by some of what I learned about radio producers.
Mm-hmm.
It's so much more than just hitting record.
Absolutely. Forget pressing buttons. These folks are architects of audio. They take a raw idea and shape it into the final product you hear.
Okay, love the architect analogy. So what are they designing exactly? Sounds waves.
Think of it this way. If the radio show is a building, they're creating the blueprints, sourcing the materials, managing the construction crew, and even picking out the furniture.
Right.
Content creation, show structure, team management, it's all part of their domain.
So it's like they're conducting an orchestra of sound and voices, making sure it all comes together in a beautiful symphony.
You got it. And just like a conductor needs a deep understanding of each instrument, a radio producer needs to understand how each element, the host, the guests, the music, even the sound effects, contribute to the overall experience.
Now, that doesn't sound easy. And RoleCatcher's guide doesn't shy away from the pros and cons either. On the plus side, it seems like a highly creative field with the potential to reach a lot of people.
Hmm.
But what about the downsides? Is it all studio glamour and listener love?
Let's just say it's not all sunshine and roses. Imagine juggling long, unpredictable hours, high-pressure deadlines, and the ever-present need to adapt to new technology. It takes a certain kind of person to thrive in that environment.
That reminds me of this one time right before a live show, we had a guest who showed up with a brand new microphone, one I'd never even seen before. Talk about a tech scramble.
Oh, no.
Let's just say I'm now an expert in untangling headphone wires under pressure.
Sounds like a classic radio moment.
Definitely memorable.
Yeah.
But hey, those crazy situations are part of what makes it exciting. So you've got the passion, the energy. You're ready for anything. But what about qualifications? Do you need a fancy degree to even think about applying for a radio producer gig?
That's where it gets interesting. While a background in journalism, broadcasting, or even music production can be helpful, it's not the only path. RoleCatcher actually found that specific skills often trump formal education in this field.
Okay, so what skills should someone focus on if they want to break into the radio biz?
Well, you might be surprised to learn that strong speaking skills were only the top requirement for 63% of radio producers surveyed by RoleCatcher.
Okay, that makes sense. You've got to communicate clearly, especially on live radio. What else is there?
Coming in at a very close second, 57% of radio producers said active listening is crucial.
Wait, hold up, listening. That doesn't seem like a skill you'd usually associate with radio. Isn't it all about talking?
That's where the magic happens. A good radio producer isn't just broadcasting a message, they're creating a dialogue. They need to deeply understand their audience, their guests, their team. It's about creating a conversation that resonates.
So you're saying it's not just about having the loudest voice in the room. It's about listening closely and crafting an experience that speaks to people.
Precisely. And this emphasis on soft skills makes even more sense when you see the other skills RoleCatcher highlights. Things like writing, critical thinking, social perceptiveness, and even coordination.
Okay, yeah, I can see how those would come in handy when you're dealing with tight deadlines, demanding personalities, and a million moving parts. You've got to be firing on all cylinders. It's like you're not just launching a radio show, you're launching a carefully orchestrated campaign.
You're spot on, and those skills become even more critical as you climb the radio ladder. RoleCatcher outlines a pretty clear progression, starting with the often unsung heroes of the radio world production assistants.
Okay, let's hear it for the production assistants. What's their day-to-day like?
They're the ones behind the scenes, making sure everything runs smoothly. Think assisting with show planning and organization, handling audio production tasks, maybe even making sure the studio coffee pot is always full because, radio never sleeps.
Right, caffeine is key. But seriously, it sounds like a crucial stepping stone, getting that hands-on experience. What's the next rung on the ladder?
Next up, assistant radio producer. You're still supporting the production process, but now you're actively involved in developing show content, coordinating audio elements, managing resources, and even contributing to those creative brainstorms.
That sounds like where you really start to find your voice as a producer, taking on more responsibility and shaping the sound of the show.
Exactly. RoleCatcher shared an example profile of a successful assistant producer who emphasized the importance of a creative mindset, strong collaboration skills, and clear communication. It's about more than just technical know-how. It's about being a team player with a vision.
Okay, so you've mastered the art of the coffee run, honed your skills, and maybe even pitched a few winning ideas. What comes next?
You guessed it. You graduate to the big leagues and become a full-fledged radio producer.
Time to drop the assistant title and step into the spotlight.
This is where you really get to flex your creative muscles. You're developing and overseeing the production of entire shows, managing and mentoring a team, collaborating with everyone involved to make sure the vision is aligned, and constantly researching to stay ahead of the curve in this ever-evolving industry.
That sounds like a demanding but incredibly rewarding role. You're basically the captain of the ship, steering the creative direction, making sure everything runs smoothly, and probably still fixing the occasional coffee pot malfunction.
Uh-huh. Exactly. And don't forget the business side of things. You're managing budgets, negotiating contracts, building relationships with industry professionals. It's a multifaceted role that requires a unique blend of creativity and business savvy.
Like we saw in that example profile, a radio producer often has a background not just in media, but also in journalism, marketing, maybe even project management. It's about understanding the big picture while also sweating the small stuff. But let's say you've climbed the ranks, you're calling the shots.
Yeah.
You're basically a radio rock star. Is there anywhere else to go from there?
For those with true ambition, the journey doesn't end there. The pinnacle of a radio producer's career path is often the coveted role of senior radio producer.
Senior radio producer. Okay, now that has a nice ring to it. What sets this role apart? More clout, more coffee.
Think of it as the executive level of the radio world. As a senior producer, you're not just leading a single show. You're leading a team of producers developing strategies for the entire station or network, making high-level decisions that shape the future of the organization.
So you're shaping the sound of an entire station. That's a big responsibility.
It is. You're responsible for maintaining the station's brand, attracting and retaining listeners, and navigating the always-changing landscape of the radio industry. You're also mentoring and guiding the next generation of radio talent.
Wow, you've gone from fetching coffee to shaping the future of radio. Not bad for someone who just loves the sound of a mic click. But speaking of the future, how secure is a career in radio these days? I mean, with podcasts, streaming services, even personalized AI DJs, it's a whole new world out there.
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And RoleCatcher doesn't shy away from the elephant in the room, or should I say the podcast in our headphones. They acknowledge the radio landscape is shifting, becoming increasingly digital.
So it's not just about those big old-school microphones at a fancy studio anymore.
Exactly. A radio producer today needs to be comfortable with a whole toolkit of digital platforms and technologies. Think podcast distribution, social media engagement, audio streaming. It's a whole new ballgame.
It's like the Wild West out there, with new platforms and technologies popping up faster than you can say microphone. How can aspiring radio producers even keep up, let alone stand out?
RoleCatcher stresses the importance of continuous learning, taking online courses, attending workshops, participating in webinars. It's all about staying ahead of the curve when it comes to production techniques, software, and industry trends.
So it's not enough to just have a good ear for sound. You need to have your finger on the pulse of the digital world.
You got it, but here's the silver lining. This shift towards digital also brings exciting new opportunities.
Okay, I'm intrigued. What kind of opportunities are we talking about? Spill the digital tea.
Well, for starters, podcasts and online radio have blown the doors wide open for creative expression and entrepreneurship. You don't need to be hired by a big shot station to share your voice anymore.
That's pretty empowering. You're saying you can potentially build a whole radio career from your basement studio.
With the right gear, some tech skills, and a whole lot of hustle, absolutely. It's a game changer for independent creators. But that doesn't mean the traditional path is obsolete. There are still plenty of opportunities within established stations and networks, especially for those who can bridge the gap between traditional and digital media.
Okay, so there's hope for those of us who still dream of working with those big, iconic microphones.
Absolutely, and here's why.
Wow.
Technology might be changing how we consume audio content, but it hasn't changed our fundamental need for connection, for stories, for shared experiences. That's where radio in all its forms continues to thrive.
So it's about adapting to the new landscape, finding fresh ways to connect with audiences, and never stopping learning.
Precisely. And for those who can embrace that spirit of adaptability and innovation, a career in radio, be it podcasting, streaming, or traditional broadcasting, can be incredibly rewarding.
It's like you said earlier, it's about finding your frequency and amplifying your voice, no matter what form it takes.
Exactly. And RoleCatcher had a really interesting point about that. They said, it's not enough to just want to work in radio. You need to have something to say.
So it's about finding those stories that you're passionate about, those conversations you're dying to start.
Exactly. What unique perspective do you bring? What experiences have shaped your worldview? Those are the seeds of a truly compelling radio career because at its core, radio is about giving a voice to stories that deserve to be heard.
I love that. Okay, so for our listeners who are ready to turn up the volume on their radio dreams, what's the best way to start exploring those deeper questions and figuring out where they fit into this evolving world of audio?
RoleCatcher's website is a fantastic launchpad. They've got a treasure trove of resources for aspiring radio producers, from detailed career guides and interview tips to a massive database of potential employers. It's like having a personal mentor in your pocket guiding you every step of the way.
It's amazing. It's like having a backstage pass to the radio world.
And the best part is a lot of their resources are totally free. You can start exploring your options without spending a dime.
Music to any aspiring producer's ears. As we fade out of this deep dive into the world of radio production, what's the one thing you want our listeners to remember?
I think it boils down to this. A career in radio is more than just a job. It's a calling. It's about finding your voice, sharing your passion, and connecting with the world through the power of sound. And while the industry is constantly evolving that fundamental human need for connection, that will never go out of style.
Beautifully said.
Right.
To all our listeners out there, whether you're just starting out or you're already a seasoned pro, remember, the airways are full of possibilities. Find your frequency, amplify your voice, and let your passion for radio shine through.
Hear, hear.
This has been an incredible deep dive into the world of radio production. A huge thanks to our expert for sharing their insights, and a special shout out to RoleCatcher for providing such valuable resources to those who want to make their mark in the exciting world of audio.
It was my pleasure.
And to you, our listeners, thanks for tuning in to another episode of The Deep Dive. We'll catch you next time for another fascinating exploration of a career path that's making waves. Until then, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep those radio dreams alive.